Did you ever think it could come to this?
Well, the answer there would be no, because it was totally unexpected. All I want to do at this stage is to thank everyone here for their support.
To this day, Susan Boyle is cited as the best example of how TV shows can pave the way for artists to become globally recognized and appreciated. Back in 2009, when Susan Boyle auditioned on the Britain's Got Talent stage, no one, not even the judges, expected her to become one of the most profoundly successful artists to emerge from the platform like that. Now, over a decade later, Susan Boyle has proven time and time again that the place she's carved for herself in the music industry is well-earned. She's even had her introduction to the America's Got Talent stage. On which note, there are some things about the singer that not even a highly televised show such as AGT The Champions has talked about. So, join us as we take a look at everything America's Got Talent didn't tell you about Susan Boyle.
And what's your name? I'm kidding you, Susan.
I know
oh
you
my
are. How are you?
God, this brings back so many great memories having you back.
It's great to be back.
Susan Magdalene Boyle, raised in Blackburn, West Lothian, did not have the easiest life growing up. As the youngest of her 5 siblings, Susan was born to her 45-year-old mother with more than a few birth complications. She lost a lot of oxygen when she was born, which was mistakenly believed to have caused her learning disabilities growing up. Turns out the doctors didn't figure this out until 2012 that Susan was on the autism spectrum with an above-average IQ. But because of the misdiagnosis, she spent her childhood being bullied for her disability. She was dubbed Simple Susan growing up. Despite that, Susan remained hopeful for a future where she could sing her heart out like her father, who worked as a singer at the Bishop's Bazaar. Another thing that you might not know about Susan Boyle is just how qualified she is in her chosen career path. She's taken proper singing lessons from a vocal coach, Fred O'Neill, and even attended Edinburgh Acting School, which helped her partake in the world's largest performance arts festival, Edinburgh Fringe. Plus, more often than not, Susan participated in her parish church's pilgrimages to the Knock Shrine in County Mayo, Ireland, and sang there at the Marian Basilica. Back in 1995, she auditioned for the Michael Barrymore's My Kind of People. A short 3 years later, she recorded 3 tracks, Killing Me Softly, Cry Me a River, and Don't Cry For Me Argentina at the Heartbeat Studio in Midlothian. Unfortunately, neither of these moves panned out much for her, and she did not get much of a response even though she spent all of her savings to get professional demos and sent them out to record companies, talent competitions, and even national TV shows. These demos would later find their way on the internet after Susan Boyle's explosive audition on Britain's Got Talent. The same thing happened to her in 1999, when she submitted a track for her charity CD to commemorate the millennium produced at a West Lothian school. Her recording of Cry Me a River found its way to the public after her audition, proving at the time that she was not a one-trick pony. Something else about Susan Boyle that is not public knowledge is just how close she was to her mother. It was her mother who urged Susan to audition for Britain's Got Talent, and to think we almost missed out on that career-defining moment for Susan when her mum fell sick. Susan took it upon herself to care for her old and sickly mother in their home, and when she passed away, no one was more distraught than Susan. She did not leave her home for the next week or so and was completely devastated. She even stopped singing for 2 years. That is, until she plucked up the courage to sing in honor of her mother at the Britain's Got Talent stage. This was the first time she'd sung in public since her mother's passing. As we know now, this ended up being a spectacular decision on her part, and her audition on the 3rd season of Britain's Got Talent still serves as a masterclass on not judging a book by its cover and underestimating genuine talent. Safe to say, even Susan herself was overwhelmed with the amount of love and adoration she received from that one audition alone, and within a few days of being aired, her audition had been viewed more than 100 million times. Though she did not end up winning the show, Susan is still considered one of the most impressive acts in the show's history, and her success after the show proves the value of shows like Britain's Got Talent. Another thing that perhaps not a lot of people would expect is just how much Susan loves musicals. Yeah, she sang a song from Les Mis at her audition, but the art form is more like a sanctuary for her. She finds stories being told through song taps into all of her emotions and senses, so it was probably the best surprise of all to have a musical of her own begin preview in 2012. Susan Boyle's autobiographical musical, I Dreamed a Dream, The Susan Boyle Story, was not the only one of its kind either. Around the same time, Susan appeared in many autobiographical documentaries, all while her singing career was flourishing. By 2012, she had released 5 albums to great public response and was on her way to release her 6th, Hope, the following year. After this, Susan ended up taking a little break from music, which postponed the release of her 7th album, A Wonderful World, to 2016. When Susan showed up on the America's Got Talent to the champion stage, many were pleasantly surprised and wondered why she'd chosen to return to the franchise. Susan simply responded that she wanted to win this time. After another Golden Buzzer enticing performance, this time performing Wild Horses from her own debut album, Susan progressed directly to the finals. There she performed her original audition song, but the move unfortunately did not pan out, and she failed to make it to the top 5. However, she did return to the AGT stage in 2019 as a performer for the 14th season's results show. It's not like the loss significantly affected her or her career. Susan, notoriously humble and easygoing, has often been commended for her relentless optimism and humble nature. Even now, she doesn't necessarily see herself as a big global artist and is surprised anytime someone alludes to the fact. In fact, she still lives in her family home in Blackburn, West Lothian, back in Scotland. The artist has performed on stages as grand as the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, but still chooses to live in the same town she grew up in. Her net worth is currently estimated to be around $40 million, and last year, Irish Mirror featured the artist as she showed off her home after being renovated. The house features furnishings that are modern and sophisticated, all while displaying a plethora of Christian ornaments right in a piano room. Her faith seems extraordinarily important to her, as a picture of her and the Pope is also tacked on a wall alongside pictures of her with her parents. Though she lives alone, here's another thing you might not know about Susan Boyle. She lives off a self-assigned, humble £300 to £500 weekly allowance. In the past, she's talked about the few things besides a house that she splurged on, and the list is charmingly small. She spent a large amount of her wealth on a fur coat, a bike, a piano, and some driving lessons. Susan has also expressed regret with her current lifestyle, claiming that she's always been open to marriage and would like to have children. Though her biological clock is done, she's open to fostering and would love to share her home. In fact, on the subject of romance, Susan gave her team a stroke this one time when she went on a secret date without telling anyone. The story goes, she was in the US and snuck out to go on a date with a doctor. But since she didn't tell anyone where she was, her team started panicking and assumed someone kidnapped the singer. Although the date didn't end up going anywhere, we're sure the next time Susan decides to sneak out to meet a boy, she'll inform her team. Another thing that doesn't often get talked about when Susan is spoken of is her charitable nature and kind heart. Over her decade-long professional singing career, she has performed at countless charity galas and events, and is often the first to extend her sympathy and a helping hand to those less fortunate than her. She's appeared on 3 major UK charity telethons, and that's not counting the 5 times that she's performed on the BBC Children in Need telethon. Susan is also a world record holder. She's been awarded the Guinness World Record not once, not twice, but 6 times. The first 2 were awarded to her back when her first album hit the charts astronomically fast. And the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th came shortly afterwards with her second album, The Gift, in November 2010. It would be easy to assume that Susan Boyle has left her mark on the world, given how much she's been able to achieve in such a short time frame. And while that is true, Susan's also nowhere near done making a legend out of herself, and we can't wait to see everything that she has in store for us.